Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another tier list video. I know you've probably seen 1,000 tier list videos, especially for post crossover breakers, but I want to focus this one specifically on YCS Anaheim coming up this weekend, December 7th. And I think it's going to be a big one because we have Ryzeal and we have Maliss coming into the meta for the first time, and we are going to see how they shape up against the heavy hitters that we've seen this entire year. Fiendsmith, Snake Eye, Yubel, Tenpai, how do they compare? How do they hold up to the, what's been reigning as the meta for what seems like 12 months? Okay, so we have finally two new decks that are coming in, threatening to take over the top position. I want to talk about what I think is going to happen in this particular event. And I think that this tier list is going to change up in terms of how the meta actually is as we go through the format. But for this event, there are some specific things that I think are going to take place, and I want to talk about them right here and right now. Okay, we're going to start off with Centurion. Centurion came out of the woodwork because it was good against Mulcharmy Perulia, Mulcharmy Fulos, Dimension Shifter. It could play through all three of those mega heavy hitter hand traps, and then it fell off a bit. I really don't think that it's going to be represented. I don't think a lot of players that were playing Centurion before are going to really want to play that, because you know what else is pretty good into Perulia and Fulos and Shifter? Ryzeal, okay? So because there's a new deck to take over that position, I don't think Centurion is going to be that great. So I'm going to put it down here in 2 to 3. I still think that it's going to be represented a bit, but I don't think it's going to be everything that it was in the format leading up to this. Okay, so I'd say 2 to 3. It could even be down in 1, to be honest. I don't know how popular Ryzeal and Maliss are going to be for this particular event, like how represented they are. But I would still say Centurion is going to have a little bit of success. Next, we have Ryzeal and Maliss. Okay, this is kind of what we came to talk about. Ryzeal and Maliss remind me of Sprite and Tierlist. You remember when Sprite and Tier came out, Power the Elements, like meta warping? Everybody played, at that time, Sprite. Sprite was the deck to play. Sprite was simple, it was straightforward, and you knew what to do. There was not a whole lot of research to be done on synergies or kind of innovations, right? And I think that's Ryzeal right now. I think Ryzeal is simple to pick up. I think it's simple to do well with. The strategies are straightforward. There's no other synergies we have to think about. And that's why I think Ryzeal is going to be, right now, the better of the two decks. And I think Ryzeal is going to be very popular, and it's going to be in the top tier here. I think it's going to have 10 plus tops in the top 64. Maliss, on the other hand, is like Tierlist. Like Tierlist was on release. You could tell the cards were good, but you didn't really know what to do with them or how to utilize them at their max capacity until the format developed, until people started testing with it, until people started playing with it, right? And I think that's where Maliss is now. I don't think it's solved. I think it's more complex than Ryzeal, and that's why I don't think it's going to see that great of representation, in this particular event on release weekend. Okay, so we're going to put Maliss down in the 4 to 10 range. I think we'll still see some tops. I think people won't know how to hand trap it, which will be huge because a lot of people are playing hand trap decks. I think Maliss will still see some success, but just not to the extent that Ryzeal is. Ryzeal is just so easy to put up such an impressive board, and it can play like 20 non-engine. So I think Ryzeal is going to have a fantastic time in this event. Alright, now let's talk about the old heavy hitters. Let's talk about Snake Eye, Fire King, and at the same time we'll talk about Rescue Ace real quick. We'll talk about all the original Sinful Spoils decks. You know what I mean? Alright, these decks are still good. If you looked at the tier list for predictions for YCS Bologna, they were at the top, right? Pure Snake Eye, Fire King Snake Eye, and, Rescue Ace wasn't. But, okay, And then if we look at the results of Bologna, they were also at the top in terms of representation. And I still think that's where we're going to be. It's just they're going to be like lower weight because we'll have a lot of Ryzeal and Maliss in there too. We'll start with Rescue Ace. I think 1. Okay, I don't think Rescue Ace is going to be very represented. And I think a lot of people that want to play Fire are just going to play Fire King or Pure. So I don't think that it's going to see very much representation in the top 64. Maybe 1, maybe even not this event. Okay, but we'll give it a 1. Okay. For Pure and Fire King, it's kind of a toss-up on which one is going to be more represented. It's really hard to predict that. I don't know the details, the specifics about how each one of these, like Pure and the Fire King version, match up into Ryzeal and Maliss. But I have a feeling that Pure is going to come out on top like it always does, and Fire King is going to be down here. And I think Fire King is going to be around the high end of this range, like around 10. Okay, but I think Pure is going to be the most represented of the Fire decks at this event. And another like benefit for that is that Pure, when I say Pure, I mean with Fiendsmith, because I'm pretty sure like all Pure Snake Eye decks play Fiendsmith, maybe even Azamina. That can count in here too, right? Those all get hurt by Fulos pretty bad. But because Fulos is so bad into Ryzeal, I think people are not going to main deck that card, right? Or it'll be less popular in the main deck. It'll be more of a side deck card. And that will benefit Fiendsmith's Snake Eye a lot. Because if they don't have to worry about Fulos, we already know, we've already seen for the past year how well Pure Snake Eye can play through traditional like low impact hand traps, right? So I think this is gonna be how it shapes out. Pure Snake Eye is gonna be down here. I mean up here, and Fire King is gonna be down in the 4 to 10 range, but probably near the top, like 9 to 10. And I could see Pure Snake Eye being like 15. Okay, and then I can also see Ryzeal being like 15. All right, let's move on to let's do Tenpai really quick while we're on the Fire decks. I think Tenpai is going to be at the bottom of this tier. I think it'll see maybe 4 or 5 tops. And the reason is that I think a lot of the Tenpai players are going to shift over to Ryzeal. I think it's a very similar deck. It's a deck that has a very straightforward strategy. It can play a ton of non-engine and kind of just has like an easy game plan, right? Ryzeal and Tenpai both fit that. And I think a lot of the people that played Tenpai before, or a decent chunk of them, will switch over to Ryzeal, and therefore I think Tenpai will see a lot less representation. In addition, Tenpai, one of its win conditions was Shifter, right? And now that there's a new Shifter deck in the meta that's popular, Maliss, right? It's not going to see as much success getting auto wins. Like, you're going to have a lower fraction of your games where you just auto win because of Shifter. Right, so I think Tenpai is going to drop down a bit. I think it's going to see 4 to 5 tops. That's my prediction for Tenpai. Mermail. Let's move on to Mermail. I think Mermail is in the 2 to 3 range. That's what it was at Bologna. I think it's still going to be good here. And when it comes to like having new decks introduced to the meta, Mermail thrives in a situation like that because it doesn't care what the new decks do. Because Mulinglacia, hand ripping for 2, setting up double totally awesome, is good against any deck. 2 Omni Negates plus 2 hand rips is so good against whatever strategy you're playing against. So I think Mermail is going to be right here in the 2 to 3 range. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be too represented. I think its peak representation has already passed. I think it's only going to come down. So yeah, I think Mermail's here. Okay, Fiendsmith Yubel. I think this is the sleeper of the tournament. And, you know, I say sleeper. Everyone knows Fiendsmith Yubel is fantastic. It got 2nd place in the last tournament, right? But remember what I said about Pure Snake Eye and why I thought that was a good deck? It's because people are not going to be main decking Fulos necessarily. I think that might be overdone, and I think Fiendsmith Yubel will take advantage. And it's always just an incredible deck against low impact hand traps. It can play through a ton of interruptions, and I think it's just going to be really good. I think it's going to be in the high end of this 4 to 10 range. I would say like 8 to 10. And I think it's going to surprise. I think it's going to increase its representation in the top 64. And we'll see. We'll see how that take is. We'll see how bad Shifter, like having another Shifter deck, will impact this. But I really think Fiendsmith Yubel is a strong deck. Fiendsmith Cash now. Fiendsmith Cash was the surprise of YCS Bologna. It saw, I think, maybe around 6 slots in the top 64 of Bologna. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like, I know, like, 4 of the raid and trade guys and pack, and then the winner. Those are 6 right there. You know, made top of Bologna. And it didn't have a lot of representation in the tournament overall because nobody had heard of this yet, right? Now everyone's heard of this, and everyone likes this concept. However, I don't think it's as good in this format with Ryzeal as it was in the Bologna format with only Snake Eye at the top. Okay? And that's because Ryzeal is also very good at playing through low impact hand traps and can set up boards that are pretty strong into Fiendsmith Cash. So I think that counterbalance of like more representation but also not as good into the meta is going to put it around here. I'd say around 4, like around the bottom of this tier, like around the level of Tenpai. I don't think it's going to be as good as it was in the previous tournament. Fiendsmith Memento. I think this deck is very good. I think this is one of the best decks of the format, and I think it's going to see 2 to 3 tops because no one's playing it. Like, it's rare to find a Memento player, to be honest. And especially with new toys coming out, like Ryzeal and Maliss. And then, like, all the other people playing Fiendsmith are playing probably pure Snake Eye because it's a bit better, right? There's just not a lot of Fiendsmith Memento players in the first place. This deck could very well win the tournament. Don't get me wrong. Like, I think it's very good. But just in terms of percent of the top 64 that this deck will take up, I don't think it's very much. I think it's 2 to 3. Okay? Moving on to weird decks, Fluanderies. Why is it in this? Plants. Why is it in this? Okay, Labyrinth, I could see getting 1. You know, a lab always sneaks in, right? So we'll put it there. Plus, Destructive Daruma Carbon Cannon is very good into Ryzeal and Maliss. It's very good into every deck on this list almost. Except for, I don't know, Fire King has a good matchup into that. But whatever. I digress. I think Lab will sneak 1 in as usual, and that's about it. Ritual Beast, kind of same thing. I think a lot of the people that were playing Ritual Beast were the players that wanted to play a combo shifter deck. Guess what? There's a new one out. So I think a lot of Ritual Beast players are shifting over to Maliss. I don't think this is going to be very represented. Ritual Beast still is weak to the Charmies, but we'll see if the Charmies are in the main deck or in the side deck. We might see some Ritual Beast stealing some wins, right? And Protoss is still a good card. So, hey, let's see what happens. Ritual Beast, we'll give it 1. 2 to 3 if you want to be generous, but I think it's in the 1. And then we have the Millennium Exodia deck. I think this comes down here. Its win con is Shifter. And there's another Shifter deck. It was already down at maybe 1 in the top 64 in the previous event. I think now it's going to have even fewer matchups where it's an auto win. Like Ryzeal is decent into it because Ryzeal doesn't necessarily lose to Shifter that bad. So, right? Am I wrong? Someone tell me in the comments. Let me know if I'm right or wrong on that. I don't think Ryzeal loses to Shifter automatically, right? But, yeah. I think Millennium, not this event. I don't think it's even going to get 1. Plus, you have to play 5 bricks in your deck with the Exodia pieces. So, okay. But yeah, this is the tier list for Anaheim. I think Ryzeal and Pure are both going to get about 15 each. So that's like 30. I think these 2 decks, Yubel and Fire King, are going to get like 8 each. That's, what, 46. Maliss, Tenpai, and Cash, like 4 to 5 each. Right, so whatever, that's 58, and then we'll fill out the rest with these 6 decks down here. I don't know, but I think that adds up to about 64, so I think this is a valid tier list, first of all, in terms of numbers. I think we have enough decks in each of the right positions. I think it's going to be a diverse meta, and that makes me excited to watch. Man, I am excited to see what Ryzeal does. I'm excited to see what Maliss does, and I'm excited to see what all of the popular players have chosen to play. I feel like Ryzeal is going to be up there, man. I feel like it's going to be up there, and I feel like people haven't solved how to beat the deck yet. Everyone knows you have to hand trap the duo drive. Okay, but I bet some people are clever and going to figure out a way to play through that pretty well, right? So this is my personal prediction for YCS Anaheim. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel. There's a lot of you watching that are not subscribed. I appreciate your views. I would also appreciate you clicking the subscribe button so I can grow the channel, reach more people. That would be fantastic. And with that, I will catch you guys in the next one. We'll see you soon.